Hey guys, Asher here with Real Buyer Agency and join our Scott Bothell. So a few days ago, the Northwest Multiple Listing Service released market summaries for activity that took place in January 2020. This is pretty exciting as it allows us to more accurately determine how the extremely low inventory situation that showed up at the majority of Washington real estate markets at the end of 2019 has subsequently influenced listing and sales prices. This is particularly intriguing as this extremely low inventory is currently accompanied by what are, in historical terms, very competitively low interest rates. This new data also allows us to see whether there has been any substantial variance in buyer demand in recent weeks, and whether there has been any noticeable reaction from potential sellers bringing their properties to market, and thus creating an increase in listings for January in excess of monthly norms. Once again, in this video, I will primarily be focusing on and examining data for the two counties that I personally serve, which are King County and Snohomish County. Okay, all that said, let's get started.
So as we covered a load of national data last month, we're not going to spend very long at all on that this month now. We're going to just touch on that maybe once every quarter or so. But I did want to start today by going back over this slide from last month, which provided projections by all the major agencies for the interest rates for the 30-year fixed rate mortgages for this coming year. And just to kind of highlight that actually we've already dipped below these projections as given, the lowest on here being around 3.6. Earlier this month, we briefly dropped even into the high 3.4s. When I check it today, at this time of recording, it's currently sitting at about 3.64. So it will be interesting to see where rates move from this point, if they will continue downward or, perhaps come back up towards where these projections were. Only time will tell, and we'll look forward to some more projections from these major agencies as they recalibrate here. Obviously, though, as interest rates stay low and go lower, this can only be a good thing in terms of creating a rise in price points in the housing market. Quite simply, the more people can borrow, the higher the prices can go, provided all other factors remain constant. Okay, moving on to the local data. We're going to do this a little bit differently from last month. We're going to flip around the new active listings and the total active listings chart. So this is the newly active listings charts for King County and Snohomish County for data for January 2020. Okay, so in King County, we had 2,361 new active listings. We're looking at the green columns here. Snohomish County had 1,108 new active listings. And if we look to the yellow columns, we can see that for King County, that was a slightly less in terms of active listings from January 2019. So year over year, the monthly data means there were less new active listings in King County in 2020. And in Snohomish County, we can see it's ever so fractionally more, but literally a handful, 7 there. So right off the bat, we can hypothesize that we needed a little bit more in terms of new listings in order to start to make up the gaps that we had in inventory levels that appeared at the tail end of 2019, when you were super low at the end of 2019 in terms of months of active inventory available in both King and Snohomish counties. And so, yeah, here King County slightly falling short of last year's new listing numbers, and Snohomish County, fractionally beating it, but obviously, in such small margins, it's probably not going to be enough. So unless we saw a dramatic decrease in buyer interest in January 2020, we know that already that we're probably going to, be in the similar situation of low months of inventory to December. Moving over to the total active listings chart, we see that in King County, we now have 2,118 total active listings, residential and condominiums. That includes new builds as well. And in Snohomish County, 969. As you can see in both cases, year over year, down substantially. A very similar picture to what we saw In last month's market report, following the data that was through the end of December, we are down 42.57% in King County year over year, and we're down 33.26% in Snohomish County. Looking at our month-to-month comparisons, this is our blue columns to our green columns. You see in King County, we lost 6.28% month-to-month, and in Snohomish County, we lost about 3.68%. Now, this fact that here at the end of January, we had lower total listings than December 2019 actually had me scrambling to look up whether or not that is normal in terms of having a lower inventory in January than December, even if only slightly, and that is actually normal. The vast majority of years we ended with lower inventory in January over December, which if you think about it makes sense, as over the holidays in December people aren't listing houses or really even engaging in those conversations for just those few weeks. But then the minute the new year starts, a lot of buyers feel motivated to get out there and maybe get at it with their goals for the new year. And our pendings almost always increase every single year there in January. And that results in a lower inventory at the end of January than even the end of December. So as we're talking here about pending sales and months of inventory, before we move on to look at current listing prices and current sales prices, let's have a quick look here at these two pending sales and months of inventory charts. So the pending sales charts up here. As you can see, King County in 2020, January, 2,476, which year over year was up from 2,452 in January 2019. So that's an increase of slightly less than 1%, about 0.98%. So pretty much the same. And then for Snohomish, we were at 1,261 pending sales in January, and previous year was 1,239. So that represents an increase of just a little bit under 2%, 1.78%. So pretty similar year over year pending sales statistics. So switching now to the months of inventory, all data being factored in for the Northwest Multiple Listing Service as pegged months of inventory now in King County at 1.27 and in Snohomish County at 1.24 months. As you can see in both cases, that's an increase over December, which is a positive sign, but we are still considerably off the numbers for January 2019. In the case of King County, off by about 45.73%, and in the case of Snohomish County, off by about 38%. Okay then, so median list prices. In response probably to the super low inventory that was at the end of 2019, we see that in both King County and Snohomish County through January of this year, we saw an increase in listing prices. We went up from $713,890 median list price up to $750,000 median list price in King County, which represents a 12-month high in King County. And in Snohomish County, the increase was a little more moderate, but then it responded a little earlier on the ground. And so it went from $569,000 to $575,000. Now finally here then, the median closing sales prices. Now if we look to the far right of this chart, we can see, perhaps a little bit surprisingly, actually the closing sale prices in January for both Snohomish and King County actually dipped off where they were in December, at the end of December 2019, which obviously is a little bit surprising considering we've seen how much the listing prices have just started to go up. And based on the low inventory and reports on the ground from agents of very high multiple offer situations, and most agents reporting that offers came in, at or even above listing prices. This could just be a little bit anomalous, again, as stuff is being cleared out. But it could also be a warning sign to sellers that just because the inventory is low, there are certain price points at which buyers on their side, as no matter how many there are in the market, are still unwilling to go or aren't able to go. So essentially we're in a kind of in a range right now, and price to listings too high, and there's no guarantee that you're going to be in this multiple offer situation. I think it's also could be a symptom of the market currently being quite stratified, because we don't want to read too much into this. When I looked up the list price to closing price percentages, they are still reported. If you look at median listings between 97 and 99%. In both Snohomish County and King County, so not coming that far off wherever the listing prices were. When you look then to properties that are $1 million plus, in both counties you fall down to 92% closed to list. So that could be what is affecting these medium price points being recorded lower, but still it is interesting to see that they haven't also trended up.
So in conclusion, I think it's safe to say that the data we have for market activity that took place in King and Snohomish counties through January 2020 is a bit of a mixed bag. While months of inventory numbers have risen slightly from December, that increase in inventory very closely matches, in percentage terms, historical seasonal patterns. The fact that inventory got so extremely low at the end of 2019 and that January has not outpaced previous recent Januaries in terms of the numbers of listings added means that we remain substantially below normal inventory levels. A continuing steady stream of buyers into the market alongside this very low inventory is continuing to drive listing prices higher across both King and Snohomish counties. Despite the increase in listing prices, actual pending prices and sales prices, when we look across all areas and price points as a whole, seem to have remained fairly steady thus far, with the gap between the median list prices and median closing prices widening slightly to the downside month to month. We should probably be cautious not to read too much into these observed average discounts in closing prices versus list prices, recognizing that this may mostly be a symptom of what has for a long time now been a fairly stratified market, with closing prices to listing price percentages still reported as averaging 97% to 99% for median price properties in both counties. Okay guys, that does it for our February market update. Please hit the like button if you found this video useful, and subscribe to be notified of future content like this. Please also feel free to engage or post any questions in the comments section below. And until next time, I hope this finds you well, and have a great one.